More people float in. My name is Karen Brownlee, and I am the Adult Program Coordinator here at the North Suburban YMCA. And what that means is I bring in programs for adults, and our youngest adults, who we're serving tonight. But I bring in programs for anybody from the age of 18 to 108. And I bring in experts in their field to talk about their areas of expertise, about things that might be of interest to you. So tonight we have Crafting the Perfect College Essay. Tomorrow we have 9 Myths of Life Insurance. And I actually am going to bring in some of my flyers.
That's awesome.
And we have another 13 programs this month. Most of them are during the day, but I'll do more at night if that's what you're interested in, because we're getting a nice turnout tonight. So I'm really glad that you're all here. In addition to this type of programming, which I call the Adult Education Series, I also have a Friday Brain Games. Usually tend to be more for the senior population, but keep our brains young and healthy. We have a caregiver support group, which might be for people of this age who might be caring for parents, or maybe spouses, or even just your children. If you are in a situation where you need some support and you need to come and go bleh. That's what Friday at 10:30 is all about, is just a caregiver support group. Fridays at 9:30 is Brain Games. We also have a social club. I have 50 members of my social club, and we go out to lunch and dinner once a month, and I usually get about 15 people to join me for lunch and dinner, which is fun. But this is something that is pretty cool. This is our first program for the really young adults, and I'm really excited because Martina came to me and wanted to do some other things, and then we talked about this and went, oh, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
So, and this is your first time doing this program in front of a crowd, right?
Yes, actually, yes.
Yeah,
I've been working with people individually, so this is the first time that this is a group effort.
I know, it is very exciting.
And it's interactive, so no shyness.
That's right. So thank you all for coming. In front of you, you've got a little half sheet, which is my way of asking you to tell me what you thought of tonight, how you learned about it, did you like it, were there things that we could have improved? This is the first time we are actually creating this as a podcast, cross your fingers, as well. So we're hoping that that will work and that it will, we'll be able to put it up on our website so people can access it, and we're hoping to do that with more programs as we go along. And what else did I want to say? So you've got the half sheets. I'm going to bring in my lists of the whole program for September so that you can see all of it. And if you'd let me know how you found out about it, that's really interesting to me. And if you would also let me know what else you'd like to learn about. I read all of these and then I go out and find experts in their field. In fact, we are booked through the end of December. I am booking into 2020. And in 2019, I'm so thrilled to say this, we will be having over 100 of these programs. So, not this per se topic, but that's really exciting for me because when we started doing this, I had maybe 1 a month, then 2 a month, and then 1 a week, and then 2 a week, and now we're doing an average of 4 a week. So, I'm going to wear myself out. But thank you all for coming. My name's Karen. If you have questions about the adult programs, I'm your gal. And if you have questions about Crafting the Perfect College Essay, this is Martina Faulkner. And again, welcome. Thank you for doing this. I'll let you fill them all in on your details. And thanks so much.
Thank you so much. Karen's a force to be reckoned with, isn't she? Okay, of course. So firstly, thank you to Karen, thank you to the Y for bringing me here because I think this is really interesting information topic, not just for our younger adults, our seniors and juniors who are here, but also for adults because it's about understanding how to craft any written piece. It's not just writing, it's crafting. How do you build it? Why? What is the method behind writing? Good writing always has a method to it. A lot of my friends who are authors, if you see the charts that they make before they write their book, they're huge and they move. So it's very complicated, but it doesn't have to be. So you have in front of you a lovely little handout. We're not going to start there for a second. That's going to teach you how to craft an essay. It's going to teach you how best you can use these tools to put your best foot forward and share a story in a meaningful way. So firstly, I want to tell you a bit about me. I've been writing for over 10 years. I'm also a life coach, a licensed therapist, among many other things. But what matters tonight is that I've been writing for over 10 years and I'm a life coach because I put those two things together to create a program that makes it very easy to understand how best to craft a short format piece of writing. In my writing for 10 years, I've done my own stuff. I have a self-help book and a poetry book published, and I have more on the way. But I've also been a ghostwriter. And I've written for wine companies, I've written for lifestyle, and I've written for health. So I have a very broad genre, if you will, of writing, because I know how to write. I'm not limited to just one specific area. And that's what I want to share with you tonight. If you ask my friends, they would probably tell you I've been writing my whole life. In 6th grade when I was passing notes, in 10th grade when I was still passing notes. But I didn't learn how to write until I got to college. And what happened was, when I was a senior in high school, I had an English teacher who was new that year, and he took my first essay, and I'd always gotten by. And he took my first essay and he handed it back to me and he said, "You have no analysis in here, it's all voice, take it back." I didn't even get a grade. I had to take it back and redo the whole thing, 5 pages, handwritten. And it was the first time somebody called me on my writing style. And so I redid it, and throughout that year I learned from him how to write with analysis. Then I go to college. And my freshman year in college, I had this beautiful essay, first semester, I handed it to my professor, and he called me to his office. And he said, "I'm gonna give you another shot at this." And I was like, "All right." And he goes, "You have absolutely no voice. This is all analysis. I read the book. I don't need analysis. I want to know what you thought of it." So back to back, 2 years in a row, I learned that to write well and to convey a story, you have to have both. You have to have a voice that's unique to you, but it has to be grounded in analysis. Right? That's how you write. So we're going to start, since this is about college essays, and Emily and Solomon definitely are close to that, we're going to start with the second to last page. I want you to see what the Common App questions are. So the Common App is the college application that is used across many universities and colleges. You fill it out once, you check a little box, say where you want it to go, give them the fee, and you're done. You don't have to write multiple applications for every single school. This is great, makes life easier. Last year, the Common App used these 7 essay prompts. And then they did the research on it, and they decided it was the same prompts were good for this year. They just put that out in August. So these are the actual prompts for this school year. So if you're applying this year, like Emily is, this is what you're gonna see. Now, interestingly, I put some statistics in here for you. Item number 2, item number 5, and item number 7 have the statistics of what was most chosen last year. And not surprisingly, the most chosen essay prompt was number 7. And here's why I think that is. I think students, teenagers, seniors are under so much pressure that to recycle something you wrote for somewhere else and put it on your college application makes life easier. And that's what this prompt is. This prompt says, share something on a topic of your choice. You could have used it elsewhere. That's 24%, right? The next one, number 5, is about an accomplishment, an event, a realization. It's about personal growth, understanding of yourself and others, 23.7. So just under the other one. And then the next highest one was the lessons we take from obstacles we encounter, fundamental to later success, recount a time when you faced a challenge, a setback, or a failure. But here's what's interesting about these statistics. Item number 2 and item number 5 are essentially asking you the same question from 2 different perspectives. That's what they're doing. And if you go to your very last page, you're going to see that I'm asking you how to think about these essay prompts, right? So first things first, we have an hour and we're going to cram a lot into an hour. So I'm going to give you a little cliff notes, but I'm also going to ask for your interaction. What do all of these prompts have in common? That's the first question you have to ask yourself, right? And all of these prompts have in common the specificity of just one thing. That's what they're asking you for. They don't want to know how your high school career went. They don't want to know how your involvement in a team sport went. They want to know about one specific thing that happened to you in a meaningful way and why it was meaningful. Or one specific thing that challenged you and what you did about it, right? So that's what they have in common. But to get at what they're really asking, you have to say, how do they differ? And questions prompts number 2 and 5 really teach us that. Because how they differ is in asking you how to address the prompt to get at what they're really asking, right? So 2 and 5 show you name an event that was either an accomplishment or a challenge and what you did about it. And what that message is actually asking you to do is for you to say, this is my character. Your character can be based in flexibility, resilience, growth, innovation, creativity, inspiration. Your character can show through in all those different ways, and that's what the story gives you. But what they're asking you is, define your character. Use these prompts as the vehicle to do that, right? So the goal of any college essay is to tell them who you are through the vehicle of story. You're going to use metaphors and ideas and experiences to convey who you are. So instead of saying, I'm resilient, you're going to say, I sprained my ankle at the very first game of the season, and by the end of the season, I was up and running again because I, That shows resilience, right? I met with a young man just this weekend, and he had an injury, and he conveyed resilience in his story. But for him, it wasn't about resilience as much as it was that he chose not to do what the doctor said. The doctor said, you can't do this, you're limited, give up this and this and this for 3 months. And he said instead, well, I'm limited, but I'm only limited in how I used to do things. I'm going to find a different way. And that showed innovation, not just resilience. And that story is meaningful, right? So when you look at these last 2 pages, this is sort of your cheat sheet to understanding what the colleges really want from you. And this can be applicable to any short format piece of writing you want to do. You want to tell your life story, your family's life story, you tell it through story, but not by saying things in first-person dialogue. First-person dialogue is, I'm resilient, right? The story shows that you are resilient. Let the reader infer resilience. So here's the only piece about the essay that's super specific to the colleges. In the Common App, you have 650 words maximum to tell that story. That is not a lot. 650 words is approximately 4 to 7 paragraphs. That is not a lot. So you have to be succinct, you have to be pointed, you have to be deliberate, your words have to mean what they're going to say, and there shouldn't be extra words. And we're going to get into that. So now, let's jump into page 1. This is like, sometimes I get inspired and I get really giddy, and this made me giddy, right? So, essay. I like making mnemonics for things to help me remember stuff. Essay was the perfect way to describe how you actually should write, how you should craft. So when you do essay, I'm going to try to write big enough that everyone can see, and you have this in your notes. There are 3 components to crafting. There's this component, and this component. That's it, right? Most of us have learned how to write using the arc of a story, but somewhere along the way, our teenagers have lost it. And I'll get to that in a second. What matters when you're crafting a story is you have to remember that, and this is the big issue with all of the college essays I've read and other essays I've read, when people are reading your story, they're reading it like this. They care about the story first, then they may notice the structure, and they may understand the analysis behind it. But really, this is what they care about. If the story's not good, they're not going to read it. It's that simple. But here's the rub. You have to write your essay this way. Because if you haven't done the analysis and you don't have a structure, you will never write a good story. Doesn't matter how good the story is. If you are bouncing around, making comparisons that don't make sense, nobody's going to be engaged. Trust me, I've read a lot of them. Right? So this is why we're going to craft an essay differently. We're going to really, really focus in on how you build a story, an essay properly. Right? And one of the things that I just alluded to is what's happened, I think, with the advent of technology is people are writing as they speak. But we don't read as we speak. If you actually write as you speak, it's not really a story, it's not legible. So for example, when I was reading one of the college essays of a young man a few years ago, it was a client's son, and I'll refer to him later as well, and he had this really great premise, fantastic premise. And he said it here, and then he said it here, and then he said it here, and he said it here. And throughout the whole thing, he took the same first paragraph and rewrote the same paragraph 7 times. And there was no tracking, there was no arc, there was nothing to engage with. It was like I had sat down in a coffee shop with him and he was like, well, guess what I did this summer? And then this, and then I did this, and we did this, and we did, and there was nothing to bring it all together. It wasn't cohesive. And that's because he was writing as he spoke. You literally could hear his voice as you read the words on the page, right? And that's what you cannot do if you want to capture an admissions person's attention in under 5 minutes. Because if you have 5 minutes, you're lucky. 650 words. Next time you see something that's 4 paragraphs long, read it and time yourself. Probably a minute to 2 minutes. I have friends who worked in admissions. I did admissions interviews for my alma mater. You don't have a lot of time to get their attention, to make it meaningful, to engage with you. So, this is why this matters. You have to look at any essay, any short format piece of writing, first from the perspective of analysis, then you have to build a structure, and then you flesh it out with the actual story, right? So, analysis, you buy a plot of land. You're going to analyze it. You're going to say, well, that's low lying, we shouldn't build there. That has a tree and tree rows, we shouldn't build there. You're going to analyze the plot of land before you build, right? Then you're going to hire an architect. You're going to get blueprints to build on your plot of land. You're going to build a structure. The story is how you choose to decorate it. What color are you painting it? So that it attracts people. Curb appeal is the story, right? If you don't build a good foundation, your house will crumble. And if you built a solid house on a floodplain, same problem, right? So you have to build any short format piece of writing, specifically college essays, in this order as a writer, so that the person reading it doesn't notice these things, but loves this, and invites you for an interview, which is what you want. So we are going to move on to the meat of this, which is, let's get into analysis. Now this is where you all are going to participate. Because it's much more fun when it's interactive, and I believe we learn better when it's fun. So, analysis includes 2 components, primarily. Subjective analysis and objective analysis. So what does that look like? Well, I want you all to yell out, or raise your hands if you want, 5 words to describe pizza in an objective format.
Round.
Round, that is objective. Well, not always, sometimes they're square.
That's true. That's
See? Ah. Another word. We're gonna put round over here. Round. Maybe.
top cheese.
I know people who are lactose intolerant and don't have cheese.
How is the pizza? There's no cheese.
Right. See, so you see how all of a sudden we're into this? So let's go with, let me make it easier. Let's go with traditional Domino's cheese pizza. What is objective to describe that?
Round.
No, easy one.
Dough.
Round, dough,
Sauce.
Cheese.
cheese.
Then what's cheese?
What else? Come on.
Hot.
Thank you. was hoping someone would say that.
Dun.
I mean, unless it's delivered, sometimes that's more, right? 5. Anybody else? Would most people, objective literally means that the majority of people would agree with you that these are facts about pizza. They're not your opinion, it's data, right? Now we're going to go subjective. Subjective about pizza.
Delicious.
Thank you.
Bad. Simple.
Okay.
No, we're not.
Greasy.
Simple. Greasy.
Tastes like cheese.
Cheap.
Cheap. Tastes like cheese. Is that subjective or is that objective? Because should it taste like cheese? Maybe. One more.
Yeah,
I'm gonna put 1. And I think you're gonna disagree with me. But to some people,
What?
to some people that may be true. It's got veggies, it's got carbs, it's got some protein.
A cheese pizza.
I'm just saying. This is what I'm saying. This is entirely opinion. 100% opinion, right? So I'm gonna call on Emily, because Emily has to do this for real in the next 2 months. Emily, pick one of the prompts from the second to last page. Anything that floats your boat.
Like a number?
Yeah, pick a number.
5.
Number 5. So an accomplishment, event, or realization that sparked a period of personal growth and a new understanding of yourself or others. Can you name just one? Like, is there an accomplishment that you think of when I ask you that? Or an event?
Swimming.
Swimming. Okay, so I'm gonna put swimming here.
Wait.
And I'm going to ask, one pause, because I agree with you. One pause. What would be objective data about swimming in the way you're thinking of it? Like you're on a team, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Okay. So being a member of a swim team, give me a word that says everybody on your team would experience this.
Challenging.
Challenging. Okay, one more word.
Endurance?
How do you feel, well, not feel, what is something you all experience when you go to a meet? Pressure? Okay. Patty?
I was gonna say athletic.
Okay.
Wet.
Wet? Give me one more. Anybody?
Long practice hours.
I'll just put training. Okay. Emily, I'm going back to you. How do you feel when you dive into the pool?
Free.
I love that.
Warm, cold.
One second. How do you feel when you win?
Powerful.
Solomon? What'd you say?
What?
What, did you have a word?
Yeah, like 3. Hot. I mean, warm.
Warm when you dive into a pool?
And cold.
So you feel temperature sensations. Anybody else? Anybody else like swimming? One more. Yeah, what do you feel when you go swimming?
What about the team aspect? Like,
You
I know
could,
my
because
daughter really likes it because of the team aspect.
Right, so camaraderie,
Camaraderie.
okay.
Slow.
Okay, so this is analysis over swimming. So this is an essay that Emily could write. She could take this and start to build a structure and then add story to it that's personal. What matters is that you realize that when you're in analysis mode, you really have to have a separation between that which everybody can experience and that which is personal to you. Because this is what engages the reader. This is what makes that story compelling. This, most people would agree with and nod their head when they read it, so they know that you actually did some analysis. This is what lets the person reading know that there's a base behind the story, that it makes sense. This is what makes it compelling. So now we're going to build a structure out of these things. Actually, I might just go over there. We have to look at your lovely chart. This is what I'm thinking, I'm hoping everybody learned in school, the story arc, right? I hope everybody learned this. But it's not just about the story arc, right? The beginning, the middle, and the end. It's about understanding what you really are putting into those three components to make a compelling essay. And we're going to go over here. So in the beginning, you're going to have essentially a theory. You're going to make a statement. So Emily, make one statement about being on the swim team. About why you like being on the swim team.
The team.
Pardon?
The team.
The team, you like being on the team.
Yeah.
So you're going to say, I like being on the team because that's what you're proving. Right? So why do you like being on the team?
Being with like a group of people and like my friends. And like we all come from like different backgrounds of swimming. Like some of us have swam for more than like others. And like we learn from each other.
Well, that's awesome. So it's about motivation, but everything you said was more about the community you find in swimming. It's about motivating each other. It's coming from different backgrounds. It's coming together. It's uniting behind some single thing that takes all of that into account and unites it. Right? Would you say that's sort of accurate? So because of the community, it gives me, right? This is your first paragraph. That's it. Plus a sentence. You're stating what the person should expect to read about that will be backed up by structure and analysis. So your accomplishment, your event, whatever prompt you want to choose is about, I love this, this is meaningful to me because it gives me this. And then you go into the second part and you say, most people would experience, I hope you can read my handwriting. This is what the thing is, swimming, right, as all of this. So now, you don't have to say most people would, but now you're going to say, I've analyzed the statement, and I'm going to bring it out to the wide world and say, this is a common experience. A lot of people like to be on teams for the community aspect. Swimming specifically because, guess what, it's challenging. Makes my body work in ways it wouldn't work otherwise. Give us pressure. Michael Phelps experiences pressure, right? It's common in swimming. It's highly athletic. And a lot of us hate the training because it's long, right? So you're going to have this second section that's going to be the bulk of your essay, that's going to have your objective pieces and your subjective pieces all throughout. And there's a formula you can use that's fairly good, where you're going to say, if you had 3 paragraphs in here, So you end up with 5 paragraphs total, roughly. You can have the first paragraph, and you're going to do 80 to 90% objective statements with 10 to 20% subjective. You're going to start to pepper in how it makes you feel, right? Which is why it's meaningful. Then you're going to have a second paragraph where it's not going to be split, but you're going to drop down and you're going to really get into your feelings. Here. And you're going to still say some statements about training can be really hard, but you know what? The camaraderie I experience every single time we're together getting ready for another meet makes it worth it. Because that statement about camaraderie directly reinforces this. Right? So you're going to focus on how it makes you feel, why, and it's always going to support the analysis that you make. Right? And then your third paragraph is going to be 90 to 100% subjective. And this is where, if you've gotten the reader all the way through to here, that's where you're bringing it home and showing them your character. You're showing them that you don't give up. You're showing them that you're committed. You're showing them that you really enjoy the company of others and that your relationships are meaningful, right? That's where your character shines through. And then you go down and you do your last little end piece. Well, it's just a different color, but you get it. Your end piece is going to be a summary of this. And you're going to reiterate the statement you made earlier, but you're going to do it in a personal way instead of a theoretical way. So you've taken the reader on a journey from an everyman experience into a mixed experience that becomes personal, into a truly personal experience, and you've restated your case and they agree with you because you took them through that journey, right? So, any questions at this point? Well, good, you good? Did you make enough notes to write an essay? That's what matters. The key thing is that, the key thing here, and I have this on one of my last pages, the key thing here is that you don't make stuff up, which is why you have this. If you do your analysis properly in the beginning, you will not need to add fluff. You won't need to be grasping for things, making stuff up. If you do this, you get to be authentic, and you get to be clear, and you get to be real, and it will come through in your essay. This is what I'm saying. Analysis and structure make the essay. Story just makes it pretty and makes it accessible and compelling. So, let's move on to story. Any questions? Are you good to move on? Okay. I seriously don't know how teachers do this this day. So, you get to this lovely page where you're adding the narrative. I put all these questions up at the top. Where, how, why, who, when. This is where you are fleshing it out and making it real. Emily can write an essay about how meaningful swimming is to her, and the team is to her, and the camaraderie is to her, and winning is to her. But if she doesn't actually put heart into it and give an example of a specific meet, we're back to specific, a specific time, a specific meet that demonstrated all of that, it's just going to be a nice story, not a compelling, great story, right? So you have to bring in something that makes it real, that makes it tangible. It's not enough to do a golf game. What matters is what happened on the 8th hole because blah, 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 blah. The whole game was great, But this is what made it really different and special, and a memory you will not soon forget. So when you look at the first two questions I have here, why does this matter? And why should someone care? So you're asking people to read something about you. You have to ask the question, why does it matter that I'm sharing this? Why should they care about my swim team or my experience on the swim team, right? Because ultimately those two questions together is a way of you addressing the bigger question, which is, why is this important to me? Right? Why does this matter to me? It matters so much to me that I want to share it. It matters so much to me, I want to tell you about it. You know when you get to the office on a Monday, or you go to lunch with your friends, or you have a gathering and you haven't seen somebody in a while, and you go, oh my God, I gotta tell you the story. The craziest thing happened. Well, you're doing that because you're searching for connection with another person, and you're doing it through story. So it has meaning to you. Why is it important to you? Why is it important to you to connect with another person? Right? And that's the first question you have to ask. Second question you have to ask is, what do you want them to care about? Do you want them to care about that you wrote a good essay? Sort of. Do you want them to care about instead that you wrote an essay that made them want to meet you? That made them want to vouch for you? Right? You have to ask yourself, in writing this essay about swim team and this event, this specific meet, I want them to care in the end that we didn't win and we were stronger for it. I want them to care in the end that we did win and we got to celebrate something absolutely miraculous that no one thought we could pull off. Right? That's what you have to ask yourself. What do you want them to care about? A way to get at that question, that answer, is to ask, how do you want the reader to feel when they read your words? And this is a really important question. How do you want someone who's reading your story, where you've put all this time, effort, and heart into the page, it's really one page, how do you want them to feel when they're reading it? Comfortable? Right? Another word, anybody?
The land of the English language.
Ideally you have to, that's on the last page, but thank you, yes. Involved, immersed, impressed, intrigued, engaged, inspired, happy, sad. You could want them to feel sad. You could want them to go, that was hard. It was hard to read, but look at that kid. Right? What did you say?
Make the whole drama.
You could. You have to address how you want them to feel so that you know what you're trying to get at. Right? It's not enough to just tell them about you. You have to tell them about you in a way that involves them in your life for the less than 5 minutes that they're involved in your life, so that they want to be involved in your life for 4 years. So that brings us to the last question, which is really simple. What is your desired outcome? Which takes all those other questions into account and asks you to name it. So if I were to ask you, Emily, what's your desired outcome of writing that essay about the swim team, what would your desired outcome be? Pardon?
To swim in college.
To swim in college. I like that you didn't say to get accepted, because that's a foregone conclusion, right? You want to be accepted. But you want to swim in college. You want that opportunity, right? So what do you need to make them feel or think about you in order for them to give you that opportunity?
That I don't give up.
That you're tenacious, that you're strong, that you're committed, that you don't give up, that you're in it, that you're all in. Any of those things works. So you want them to feel that. And you want the outcome to be not only an offer from the college, but an offer from the swim team and the swim coach in the college. That has to inform, I don't have it up there anymore, your analysis, your objective and subjective analysis, and your structure, because by answering that question that way, you're not saying, hey, I want to write about my team camaraderie and the community I feel. You're saying, hey, swimming is a part of my life, and I can't imagine a day without it because of this, this, and this. That's a very different essay. That makes the coach go, part of her life. And she backed it up. I don't know how many students would say, swimming is a part of my life, I really want to swim. Maybe a lot of people do. But if you back it up and you give a specific example that was meaningful to you, that literally took you to your knees with gratitude for being able to swim with part of a team in that way, they will notice that. But you can only do that if you have the analysis first and then you put it into a structure that makes sense, right? So the story piece is the piece that gives meaning to all the work you did before. The story piece is the element that not only highlights and underscores your character, but makes your character real. They can imagine the person in front of them whose words they're reading on a page. Right? Make sense? Good.
A question.
Yeah, go ahead.
It almost feels like though, after you did this last step, it changed.
It did
what
change.
we did before.
You don't start writing the essay until you do all the steps.
Oh, I see. So it all informs together. Okay.
Yes. So you have to do it in steps because now you have a roadmap to actually write. But if you write from just analysis, you still aren't doing it properly. And if you write from just analysis and structure, you're still not doing it properly. You have to get those things in place to drill down enough to be able to answer the questions around the story. And now you have a frame to put around the analysis and the structure. A roadmap. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so the qualifiers. What not to do. This is actually a fun section for me because it's a little more playful. Don't use fancy words. So last year I helped a young student with his essay, and I can tell you that I've experienced this before. And there was an entire section that I highlighted and put a little comment and said, did your parents write this? Because there is no way a 17-year-old uses those words. Ever, 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 ever. And he sheepishly said yes. And I said, take what they're saying because it's good, put it in your own words. And the reason I told him that is because when I used to do interviews for my alma mater, I was that person who, if someone in front of me, and I got the essays, used a word that I knew a 17-year-old didn't use because I didn't use it when I was 17, I'd ask them a question about it. And the blank look was enough for me to say, look, you did nothing wrong. Just be yourself because that's what we're interested in. I'm not interested in what your vocabulary is. I care who you are. And most admissions counselors will tell you the same thing. Exception to the rule. If you are applying to specific programs in a specific university, like a science program, a math program, an engineering program, use the words of the program. You should know them, right? You cannot get by with saying everyday words in specific areas. It's not enough. At least not in, the essay they want for that department. Absolutely use what's specific to that genre. Now, the young gentleman I met with on Saturday, his favorite word in the world, which endeared me to him, is myriad. It's one of my absolute favorite words. I use it all the time. I first kind of stopped and went, do you really say it? You're 17 and you're a physics person. Do you say myriad? And he's like, I love it. It's my favorite word. It describes how it sounds. It's like, you can say it and people are like, I don't know what it means, but I get it. And I was like, then use it, because he can back it up. Right? So I don't have a problem with that. Interestingly, here's a statistic that you may not know. The average reader to actually get into a book needs to have the book written at between a 5th and 7th grade level. You want your book, if you're a writer, to be on a bedside table, to become a bestseller. It has to be written at that level. And there's actually a program that you run your manuscript through, and it tells you what level you wrote at. So you know if you hit the mark, or you know if you've gone above it. Now, if you're writing a textbook, not the same story. So for an admissions person, you should write as a 17-year-old and have it be readable at between a 5th and 7th grade level. Don't use fancy words. Doesn't get you any points. They know what you scored on your SAT and your ACT. It's not going to get you anywhere. The next thing is never assume that your reader knows what you mean. So if you're talking about something specific like swimming, the swimming coach will know what you mean. The general admissions counselor probably won't. So if you assume that the first person reading your essay knows what you're talking about, you're making a mistake. It will add a sentence to your paragraph to give a little bit of backstory, but it's a sentence that's worthwhile so that they don't get lost in what they're reading. Never assume that they know what you're talking about. If you are an equestrian and you talk about, riding English or Western saddle, and you get somebody who's never seen a horse in their life and is scared of animals, they're going to have no clue what's the difference between English and Western. Don't assume, right? One of the easy ways to go around that is, I love horseback riding. They can picture that. They can't picture, I love English horseback riding or Western horseback riding. They can't. What does that mean? So you can't assume that they know where you're coming from. The other thing, we're going to skip to the last one, overshare. So one of my professors in grad school had this great phrase that being vulnerable or oversharing is not the equivalent of live tweeting your bikini wax. People don't need you to overshare, especially in your college essay. You don't need to, let's say you lost at the swim meet, right? They don't want to hear about how I crumbled, I went home and ate Haagen-Dazs for 3 weeks, I walked away from the team, I gave up, it just took me down, and then, my dog did this, and nobody wants to hear that. The drama trauma train does not need to be in your essay. What they want to hear is, that was one of the worst experiences of my life because it impacted me so severely. And after I had a little break, I decided to get up and do this. They want to hear that. They don't want to hear the oversharing. They don't want to hear how you wore your pajamas to the movies. Like, don't do it.
That's true.
Yeah, right? Then we'll go back to the third one. Well, let me say one more thing about oversharing. A reader can detect false humility and false modesty very quickly, in the same way that they can detect false bravado. So if you're writing about something and it's not really true for you, it'll come through. They will detect it. There are no stars for being humble if you have actually accomplished something. Don't negate your accomplishments. Don't talk them down. Don't be falsely modest. If you did it, say you did it, own it, claim it, and move on. Similarly, if you sort of did it, but you want to make yourself look better than you were, and you talk yourself up a little, they will absolutely see through that. So the key phrase there is, be real, be authentic. If you did your analysis, this will not be hard. Okay? And now let's go to edit. So please don't forget to spell check and edit for grammar. And I put a hint there. Edit, 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 and edit again. And here's a top tip for you. Because this is a short format piece of writing, 650 words or less, if it's the Common App essay, if you read it from the bottom up, you are more likely to catch mistakes, such as writing of when you meant off, or vice versa. Words that are real words, don't rely on spell check. Words that are real words, the spell check will say, well, of is a word, you meant of, but you meant off. So the tip is read it from the bottom up, but do that as your last pass. So in editing, you want to edit it. You want someone you trust to edit it. You want to edit it again, bottom to top, and then you want another person to edit it. When I did my first book, I did the first edit, caught 7 typos, 186 pages. I did a second edit, caught 2 more. Did a third edit with a professional editor, she caught 4 more. Sent it to a graphic designer for layout, they caught 2. Sent it to another professional editor for a galley copy edit, and she caught 1 more. Never trust a single pass, ever. Because if you have a great essay, and it's super compelling, and it's riddled with mistakes, you're going to turn off the person reading it. You make it hard for someone to read. I have a friend who wrote a really good book, great story. I reviewed it on Amazon, gave him 4 stars. He was really mad at me. And I said, I can't give you 5 stars because you didn't hire an editor. Great story, horrible mistakes throughout the whole book. I lost count after like 20. So he hired an editor, had it edited, re-uploaded it. If you want to take your writing seriously, if you want someone to take your story seriously, put your best foot forward. It's not hard. So many people are willing to edit. I mean, use someone you trust, right? Your English teacher. Could you take a look at this for me? Your parents. Don't let people change content unless something really doesn't make sense. Because the content is your heart. Content is your story. You don't want people messing with that. But if they say, this sentence doesn't work, listen to that. Find a different way to write it. But there's no excuse for grammar errors and typo errors in today's day and age. And yet, they're everywhere. You pull up any major media, blog, online magazine, and there's errors in all of their work. So, finally, on the last page, I'm just going to read this out. A perfect college essay is effective when you engage the reader in a single aspect of your life. The goal of the college essay is to leave the admissions counselor wanting more, enough to invite you to interview. The college essay is a single and brief opportunity to show them who you are and why you are a great fit for their school, and why their school is a good fit for you, because it has to go both ways. That is the ultimate goal of any short format writing. It doesn't have to be a college essay. The ultimate goal of any short format writing, if you're a writer, if you're selling something, if you're creating a program, if you're introducing something, is to get engagement and leave the person wanting more. More of your writing, more of your offering, more of you, whatever. Whether it's 200 words, 650 words, 25-page paper, that's the goal. The goal is leaving the person feeling satisfied with what they read and curious about more. Whatever the more is that you define. And you can do that with this format. You can do it if you build it properly in any format of writing. I will tell you, as I told Emily before, it's actually harder to do it with less words. It's really, really hard to write short. I just had to submit something to a book of contributing authors. It was 300 words, and it nearly killed me. Thankfully, I have friends who work in writing, and I was like, I'm at 325, tell me where I can cut, 10th pass. And they were like, well, if you rearrange this to this and this to this, you can cut out 15. I was like, all right, cut out 15, And that's the truth of it, is short format writing is hard. It's really hard, because you have a very tiny amount of space and time to tell something compelling, to get the person to want more. Make sense? Any questions? Because that's everything. That was a lot packed into a short period of time. Are you good?
Yeah,
You have it right around the corner, so I'm most concerned. You're good. Like, you get this?
yeah,
Okay. Did you get inspired a little? Have some thoughts for me?
yeah.
Okay, good. You good?
Yeah.
You have it next year. You have it soon.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, good. Yes.
Question. My son's a senior, he's going through this whole process, so he's also has to fill out a coalition app,
Okay.
which is shorter than the Common App.
Yeah.
So my question is it okay to send in the coalition essay with the shorter words on the Common App, or should we expand on it?
How many words is the coalition essay, do you know?
550 is the max, his is like 535.
I would flesh it out a tiny bit more.
Okay,
You're close.
yeah,
I mean, I'm not a college guidance counselor. I don't do that for a living.
yeah.
But I would suggest fleshing it out a bit more because here's the truth. If he has a compelling story and a compelling essay, why wouldn't he make it a little more engaging? Like if he added 2 more sentences that made the reader, the admissions counselor go, oh, why wouldn't he? Why wouldn't he take advantage of that? You know, like you have the room, use it, you know? Yeah, I would, for sure I would. I mean, as a writer, like that's a huge gift, 100 more words, I'd be like, I won the lottery. Like, I get to say more. I don't, you know, brevity is hard when you're a writer. You know, and I write books, so like, yeah, brevity is hard. Any other questions? Everybody's gonna go home and write amazing things? Yes. Really?
Probably not yet.
Yes, you will. You have compelling stories. So, yeah. All right, so that's me done for the evening. I'm so glad you were all here. And a lot of you parents get awards for being here for your kids. Like, that's amazing. Like,